In this section, I will cover a few different types of triangles and the definition of a few quadrilaterals. An acute triangle is a triangle in which all three angles are less than 90 degrees. So all three angles are less than 90 degrees. A right triangle is a triangle that contains one 90-degree angle. An obtuse triangle is a triangle that has one and only one angle that measures more than 90 degrees. That is an angle that is more than 90 degrees. This particular angle here is approximately 120 degrees. An equiangular triangle is a triangle in which all three angles measure exactly the same, which means that all angles must measure 60 degrees. Because a triangle, all triangles, the sum total of all three angles is 180. So if the three angles were to be equal, then they must be 60 degrees each. An equiangular triangle, all equal angles. A scalene triangle is a triangle in which all three sides have different lengths. No two sides are congruent on a scalene triangle. An isosceles triangle has two congruent sides. Now, it can have more than two congruent sides, but by definition, it must have at least two congruent sides. An equilateral triangle is a triangle in which all three sides are equal. So this side, let's say it was 5 inches. Then this side must be 5 inches, the same as this side. Now, all equilateral triangles are also equiangular triangles, just so you know. Let's take a look at some quadrilaterals now. Quadrilaterals are simply four-sided polygons. Now, we typically think of rectangles as quadrilaterals, but as we'll see, there are a few other types. But first, defining the parts of a quadrilateral. Opposite sides are two sides that have no points in common. They are just across the shape. Consecutive sides are two sides that share a point. They kind of meet at an angle. Opposite angles are two angles that, again, are opposing. They're kind of at this diagonal across from each other. While consecutive angles are angles that are side by side. So, for instance, this angle and this angle here would be considered consecutive angles. Any two angles that are not diagonal but are just next to each other. First, let's look at a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral that has one pair of parallel opposing sides. So these two sides have to be parallel, meaning they'll never touch, and they're opposing. That's a trapezoid. A parallelogram is often drawn this way to show that it must have two pairs of parallel opposing sides. So these opposing sides are parallel, as are these opposing sides. They are also parallel. But we can also draw a parallelogram this way, just like a normal rectangle, as long as the opposing sides are parallel. That's all that matters. A rectangle, first of all, is a shape we're all very familiar with. But to define a rectangle, it's a parallelogram, meaning it has the two pairs of parallel opposing sides, but it has four right angles. So Every angle of a rectangle is a 90-degree angle. A rhombus is a parallelogram, so again, parallel opposing sides, but instead of the angles being equal, all the sides of a rhombus are equal. Lastly, a square. A square is a rectangle. That means all four angles are 90 degrees. It's also a rhombus, which means that all four sides are equal. So a square can be thought of as a rectangle and a rhombus.